Good morning, everybody. How are you doing? Good?
Better than ever.
It's Wade's here. We just got our skeleton crew here, but it's lovely to see everybody, and I always love that because it's just the smiling eyes. I can't say any words. Smiling eyes and just knowing heart-to-heart connections, and our heart is reaching out to all of you, and I know that hearts are needing mending, and it's just a crazy world. But we, Gathering of Light, we want to elevate to a unity consciousness, to a high level of evolutionary consciousness, awareness. And the greatest awareness, as Buddha would say, is that we can recognize and distinguish between truth and illusion. And let me tell you guys, everything is illusion. Everything is illusion. Unless you're staying in the spirit, you are in illusion. And we are coming together today in recognition of theophany, this idea of that. Now at this point, it is through the Orthodox Christian tradition that says that this is when Jesus, when he goes into the Jordan now and goes before John the Baptist and humbles himself down and allows the waters to cleanse him over, that's when the spirit of the divine entered into him and he became that divinity made flesh in the world, not at the birth. So it's interesting how even within the Christian tradition, it is different. It is different with everybody. Everybody's going to have different ideas. Everybody's going to look at spirituality from a different perspective. But what water represents and what is here for us, and that's what all the different readings and all the different places that it comes to, that water is that beautiful expression of what that highest ideal is. Water is that substance that can be both. It can be air, it can be liquid, and it can be a solid. And yet it's still water. It's still here for us, right? We call it by different names for us, but it's ice or but it's still water, right? The divine, the Holy Spirit comes, the Spirit, air, comes with water, and Jesus grounds it into the world. And we're asked to do the same thing, to ground that connection, to bring that purity, to allow that to be flowing in us, through us, to come out into the world in that most purest form. That's our work, folks, to be as pure as possible in spirituality. Not in righteousness, not in ideals, not in other things, but in that staying in purity of consciousness and connection. And that purity of consciousness, as we learn with our interspiritual principles, is interconnectedness. It is all in one. We are all in this together, and making that inclusionary nature of all of that is one of our primary objectives in a place of cleansing and kindness and patience and love. We talk over and over again about how the world is broken and all these crazy things going on. Something like the Gathering of Light cannot exist in other parts of the world. There's some friends that wanted to go out and they wanted to start something like this in other countries. They can't. They can't. And that's because of our Constitution. That's a beautiful thing. That's something that allows us, and because we want to continue to evolve by that, and we do that through going inside to our hearts and having conversation. Compassionate conversation was, compassionate communication was one of the classes we held on to at Gathering. We wanted to have that. To know that all of this is about relationship with each other. And we're constantly in relationship with the water, and the water is the purest expression of how important our relationships are and how they need to be. They need to continue to flow, to be fluid, to be open. You know, when water is the strongest, they say, is when it hits, crashes down like a waterfall, right? When it crashes down and hits the water, that's when it becomes that's when the water is the most powerful, that crashing moment. But molecularly, it's the softest. It's the softest. You know that our power is in our softness, like the water. Lao Tzu is the one that says, those that say in the softness, it's the softness that wears away the hardest materials. But the job is the consistency. All the water in the world is the same water. Because the water is trusting that the flow and the cycle of life is there. When we get caught up in fear and get lost, we need to been cold out, so the water just was a little kind of like spitting out a little bit at first. And then, my first reaction was like a little, where's that water pressure? Where's the water pressure? I just turn a knob and fresh water comes streaming out that I can leave on all day. There are places in our world that people have to walk miles for water. That much of our water is being polluted and left uncared for. It's this sense of entitlement we get when we move away from the elements of nature. We get to a sense of entitlement that because I can get fresh water anytime I want, that I deserve it and it should be mine and I should get it. And I forget that it is a blessing. A blessing. If anything we can learn from our talk today and the blessing, the baptism, is that the baptism is a blessing. It is not something that I am entitled to. Jesus went before John the Baptist and he knelt down and he humbled himself. He didn't go, well, I know I'm the Son of God, so you give it to me, There was none of that. There's none of that in true spirituality. There is humility. And the sacredness of our water, we need to protect it. And this year, 2021, is the year of water. The year of protecting our water within our world. Because we all share it. The water that was pouring out of my shower might end up in some other way, some other form, somewhere around the world. It's the same water on the planet. We're sharing it. And water our bodies. Water. So much water. So much. It's so important to understand. To come back to the sacredness of those core things that we hold dear. And to be able to have the discernment from a spiritual perspective, to raise our conscious awareness, to trust in something eternal. Stuff happens. We read in the reading that the water's in the swamp, and Gerard said it's in the same thing. But the lotus grows in the swamp. No mud, no lotus. As a Buddhist song I keep saying now. The mud is mixed with water. They say that it's the water that gives the seedling, that strength, pop open and break through cement. It's the water in there that gives it that capacity, that ability. This is symbolic of us trusting our spirituality, our spiritual growth, and coming back to spirituality in all things. Spirituality is kind, it is listening, it is embracing, and it is eternal. No fear, only love. And so with that in mind, we want to bless some of the waters that we have here. We love at this time of year be able to have the waters presented for all of you. So I invite you now to take a moment. If you could just quickly grab a little bit of water. I should have reminded you at the beginning of the program if you want to take a little water at home. And as we've been doing with our energy circles, or just picture in your mind a cup of water. You could just go in later on and do that. All of that counts, okay? That's what we understand. Distance healing and our energy. We send out the healing. So we're going to intensify, make holy, whole, W-H-O-L-E, right? Your water for a blessing of the water. And as Kim has been wonderfully bringing to us and continue to extend out, taking that water, putting prayers into that water, and then sending that memory, sending that message into the waters of the world. But we're not going to send this water out. The water that you're going to make holy for yourself today, you're going to think about that cup of water. That's going to be your own blessing place. That's going to be your reminder. In the Islamic tradition, every time you go to prayer, you wash first. When we get together for our Seder, we wash first. Washing is so important. That water reminding us to allow the Spirit of the Divine to come into us. so that each one of us can live out that idea of this is my beloved child in whom I am well pleased, who is living the highest spiritual principles that they are possible to live in this moment, trusting in the eternal nature of all that is good. All of the Holy Ones did, and all of the Holy Ones continue to do. So in our water blessing, we have our water over here. This is our water fount. This water has waters from the Jordan River. It has waters that have been blessed during the Buddhist Wesak celebration. It has waters that have been come from all different places around where the Divine Mother has made her appearances. This water is here for all of us. The water that you have with you, we now send that same spirit, that same blessing that is here now in this water. We send it out to that water that you are picturing in your mind. And we are all taking a moment to allow ourselves to be purified and blessed in the water that is here for us. As water nourishes all life, let us permit it to replenish all that lives and thirsts within us, as the God Goddess renews each of us as a beloved son and daughter. As the water descends with a cleansing force, let it and the Holy Spirit invigorate and purify us and cause our own spirit to arise within us. So as I take this water, I ask that may it infuse you with spirit and invigorate with renewed spiritual strength and grace. Allowing the water to flow. We are blessing and blessed by it for all that it is. And it is our prayer as a community today that the World Water Initiative will come about to help keep the sacredness of all the water for all the generations to come, that our children's children may not thirst and be refreshed and trust in the sacredness of this beloved element and blessing. We thank and send our blessing to all the waters of the earth and trust that all those who need it will feel the love we send. As water flows through the earth back towards the great source of its being, let it carry us peacefully within this community and beyond, back towards the source of all creation. So let it be. So let it be. Let us think now of all those in our hearts and minds that we want to send some healing out. Maybe they need an extra bit of that water. And I don't have this in the program, but it just came over me to think of this, but we're going to send it out. Just put the names up. Everybody, if you put a name up, you're going to hear those names on the rosary, so during the week. So continue to put them up and know that the prayers do go out, and we do continue to send the prayers out. But the thought came to me of, we all come from the goddess, and to her we shall return like a drop of rain, flowing to the ocean. We all come from the goddess, and to her we shall return like a drop of rain, flowing to the ocean. All your worries, all your concerns, all that we think we are, our personalities, our ideals, everything, let it go and let us now send it back into that great ocean of the divine for cleansing, healing, so that the Spirit may come through cleaner, clearer in all that